everyone, and welcome back to my channel True Crime and Trials, and today I will be carrying on with the Anthony Pardon trial, and it's now day 5. So the first witness is Lindsay Simon, and she works at the crime lab, forensic scientist, and she specialises in DNA analysis. She was the one that, based on the DNA analysis she did, gave them Anthony Pardon's name as a suspect. So they start going through the DNA report and the list of items Lindsay tested, blood swab results, DNA male results. There was male DNA on the fingernail scrapings from Rachel, but there wasn't enough for analysis. She tested the knife, the blade and the handle were both swabbed, but no DNA due to there being too much staining, obviously, with the blood. The next item was a Pepsi can, which said it was an unknown male consistent with Jonathan Kennedy. Part of the unstained blanket cord was positive for blood, and a mixture of 3 individuals, including Rachel. Anthony and Mr. Sleet were eliminated from that. The curling iron and cord, 3 individuals, including Rachel, and 1 in 20.5 billion times more likely to be Rachel and Anthony, and 1 more individual. The third DNA contributor wasn't enough to analyse. She seemed to have not enough to actually be able to analyse further, just to get a male contributor. The next is hairdryer and cord, and that is 14.5 billion times more likely that it originated from Rachel, Anthony, and 1 other individual. The iron and cord, 3 individuals, including Rachel, excluding Anthony and Mr. Sleet. Rachel's steering wheel, the swab matches Rachel and excluded Anthony and Mr. Sleet. Glass smoking pipe, 2 unknown individuals, and Jonathan Kennedy's DNA was included in that. Sperm analysis, inner thigh and pelvic areas, there was male DNA. Anthony could not be excluded, and that sample was tested against 5,305 profiles. Vaginal swabs consistent with Anthony's DNA. Her right wrist was male DNA, 3 individuals. Anthony cannot be excluded. Her left wrist, right forearm and left ankle, all male contributors, but couldn't take it any further for analysis to get a name. The next report is a list of the next lot of items she tested, including DNA swabs. There was blood on the bedroom floor and on the power strip, and a knife that was negative for blood. She looked at the air pistol and magazine, and there was no blood visually. She couldn't get enough for DNA either. The blunt, the cigar butt, the bedroom floor and the power cord are consistent with Rachel, and excludes Anthony. The cigar butt, 2 individuals, John and Rachel Anderson. The bedroom closet door had male DNA, but not enough for comparison. Hairdryer and cord, Rachel and Anthony could not be excluded. All others were excluded. Another glass pipe, 3 individuals, 1 female, and Jonathan Kennedy could not be excluded. So on the curling iron and cord, right wrist, inner thigh and pelvic area, vaginal swab, all Anthony. The defence, questioning why Jonathan Kennedy's DNA wasn't tested on the curling iron or the hairdryer. Male DNA was found on Rachel's left and right nipple, but not enough for analysis. And then confirming that the forensic lab, the DNA results had been given to detectives in February of 2018 with the results of Anthony Pardon's DNA. So next we're on to John Daniels, who is the forensic pathologist, and they begin going through the autopsy photos. And he says there's an abrasion on her nose, possibly caused by a cord, a laceration that goes through the top of her to her skull. A blunt impact caused it, and it causes the skin to tear. Beneath the scalp was a hemorrhage, bleeding caused by the wound, and it measured 2 by 2 centimetres. This wasn't the cause of Rachel's death. It could have possibly stunned her. On her left ankle, red skin depressions, horizontal around the ankle, and patchy bruises. On her right ankle, it was the same. When there is visible bruising, it means that the heart was still beating when the bruising occurred. The left wrist, several red lines which are depressed and go around the wrist. The right wrist, the same. And the mouth, the upper teeth and upper lip, the thin membrane, that's in there, was torn, and this was done post-mortem and could be caused by the material that was put in her mouth. Her lower teeth and lip hemorrhaging due to the lower lip being pressed against the teeth, like bruises inside the lip that were caused before death. Sharp force injury, stab wound to the back of the neck. This wound has a slight J shape, and the J shape is caused when a knife blade is inserted into the body and then turned or partially in and turned. Internally there was a skull fracture. The knife had actually fractured the skull and went into her brain. A part of the skull had actually broken off, so that shows it was done with a lot of force. This injury most likely wouldn't have caused immediate death, but over time it would have done. The ligature marks around and the compression of the neck, as well as the asphyxia, would have most likely caused her death. So it's a combination of it all. Then there's 2 brown ligature marks and another further down on the front of her neck, which meant the cords weren't wrapped all the way round her neck. And on the left side of the neck, 2 ligature marks, and same on the right side. Inside, when the cord, there wasn't marks all the way round her neck because they went round her neck and then it was hooked up onto the door, so obviously the marks weren't the same all the way around. Inside her neck, the muscles on the right side had hemorrhaging. The left side was the same. Again, hemorrhaging occurs when the heart is still beating. The left eye was engorged with blood and had petechial hemorrhages, like burst blood vessels in the eyes. The right eye was the same, but not as bad. And obviously these are consistent with pressure and release and struggling. And he says the cause and manner of Rachel's death was caused by a stab wound to the head and neck, and the manner of death to be homicide. The defence: no damage to her genitals or anus, and the time of death was 29th of January at 3:20 p.m. Now, the redirect gets up to explain why her time of death was at 3:20 p.m. on the 28th of January, rather than hours and hours earlier, which is obviously what happened, is because the time of death is the administrative time of death, meaning when a qualified professional arrives on scene and pronounces that the victim is actually dead, and that is the time of death. He hasn't always seen injury to the genitalia when a sexual assault has occurred. So that's the end of day 5. An awful, awful way to die. How anyone can do that to anyone, I will never ever know. That poor woman had her whole life ahead of her. It's just very, very sad. So I hope she gets justice. I hope her family get justice. Based on evidence, is guilty. So we shall see. So until next time, bye for now.